everyone good?
Okay, let's get started.
Okay.
My name is Colin McNamara. I want to welcome everyone to the second edition of Awesome LangChain. Thanks everyone for coming by. Our agenda today, we've had our mixer. Thanks everyone for contributing a really great vibe. Dig it. We're going to go over a little welcome, go over some news announcements. We're going to go ahead and have a showcase from Mr. Karim Lalani that's based on an improvement and enhancement to one of the labs that we went over last week. And show Mistral 7B. I think you're going to touch on LangChain expression language. And please, go in depth. And then we're going to continue with more labs on LangServe and LangSmith. So these are, it's a new abstraction layer that LangChain team came out with 2 weeks ago, which to be fair was 1 week before I left for an international trip. I got the notebooks together right before I took off, and I landed. So here we are. Okay, so let's do this. Again, welcome to LangChain. We are the Awesome LangChain user group. We can be found on Twitter, on GitHub, on Meetup, on Discord. I also recorded our last remote recap that we can take it on YouTube. So if anyone want to play with something things down, pulling in transcripts, some of the multimodal stuff that's pulling out here, or if you're like me, like, holy smokes, I did not understand the thing that was said. I need to watch it over again or steal some screenshots. That being said, all the code in the repo here is Apache v2. Basically, that means you can use it for work. You can use it for play. We set PRs. We've had our first 2 PRs. Thanks, Brady. Pull requests for contributions back. The content inside of this is under Creative Commons attribution. So what does that mean? You can do it with it as long as you shout out where you got it. And if you want to contribute back, anything in the resource folder really easily is made so we can share it. Years ago, I had the pleasure of kicking off much of the user groups for OpenStack, which was open source platform. And my hope is, and what I'm starting to see this pattern of us contributing back together, creating the conversation, showcasing what we know, that we kind of set the pattern and stage, as well as the learning materials for other user groups around the nation and the world. We're trying to figure out this open source AI stuff. Let me see. We are holding in-person meetings monthly. Thinking about maybe doing some mixers in the off weeks, whatever. I live in Austin, been here for 9 years. Not always here, it's kind of my base of operations. So you'll see me around them. Same thing with Charles. Charles and I are hosting. And all of us are, that's Charles. Our focus is on low stress. And I say this to myself, sometimes I stress out. I'm like, oh my God. I'm not going to put the perfect thing out there. People are going to think I'm an idiot, and I'm like, oh, dude, there's a difference to this and that. I'm kind of dude. But it works out. So low stress is about learning and sharing. It's a fast-moving project. So let's connect with other adopters that saw us doing it out and learn, share, and go and grow. As in any meeting, in person or not, codes of conduct are important. Very simple. Be cool. We're all learning here. Don't be gross. If anyone has a problem, talk to me or Charles. We'll handle it. Okay. News and announcements. Did anyone see the GPT agents release? Okay. So for those of us that haven't seen GPT agents, a lot of what people are doing in creating in LangChain and other projects and Llama Index effectively got used to and slipped right up into a global platform in OpenAI. Now, there's a part of it, got a lot of features, but they also get your data. And in our last meetup, Charles told a story of his card game that he created and did it in OpenAI, ChatGPT. And then later on, he found that it had already been integrated. So the data's coming out. So the same day the agent was released, same day that everyone and their mother could go on and create an agent and have it available in the world, the LangChain project released OpenGPT. So this is the project. It's the same as we're kind of moving forward really, really fast. This is a project where you can basically template out open source GPTs and similar functionality to what people see on for GPT agents on chat.openai.com, but you're not just restricted to OpenAI. You can use local models. You can train your own models. You can use Hugging Face. You can use whatever, right? You can chain them together in the spirit of chains. That's really, really neat. I should have put a QR code on here. This presentation, I put it in the resources under labs. I just uploaded the PDF. I think I pushed it. I know I did it.
One moment. Stable mode. Pretty sure I did. You know, what happens when you set real time.
I just got back to America last night. Okay. Next thing that's really, really cool that I've seen. And so who here uses Dolly?
You do? Okay.
Who uses ChatGPT? Everyone? Okay. If you have this moment, so go inside, like, you can do it right now. You're like, yeah, free meeting. A bunch of nerds just like me, saying there's lovingly, not in a derogatory fashion, because I know. I'm in this beautiful room with a floaty epoxy table and these great frame TVs and like really cool art on the wall. We're learning about open source projects. Great mean individual that represents the file. You can do it right now. What Dolly 3 is the latest update of the Dolly model. It runs in OpenAI. And it has some really cool enhancements. So I use this in the Midjourney all the time. On my flight back, I popped back through, I think, Medellin to Miami, back to Florida, and then over home. And on my way from Medellin to Miami, I was in Dolly creating images for a white paper and a customer presentation that I had given it for this one. Not best one in my part. Now, Dolly allows you to integrate text into images really easily, so you don't have to log into Photoshop or Illustrator. The neat thing that I announced is Dolly's available to APIs soon. And they haven't publicly published that API yet. Excuse me? Published. It's published. Oh, can you maybe post the API docs with a link to it in our Discord server? I'd really appreciate that. And this is kind of really interesting. And it ties into some really neat things here. I'll kind of jump ahead. Multimodal GPT-4 got released. And so if you think about this concept of our ability to take text to image and text to sound, I don't know if you've played with Music LM, and we got some DJs in the room, some musicians, and some artists. Right? We're kind of coming to this intersection of code and art, which is really, really exciting. Right? Really, really super exciting. So multimodal GPT-4, what this is allowing us to do, and I know when I pulled down one of the templates in LangServe, which are going to be going over last, one of the retrieval augmented generation group was broken because of the upstream dependencies from GPT-4 and multimodal stuff. Basically, it got extended. I checked right before I came out here, it was working. So we'll see what we have and stuff. But the interesting part here is now, so GPT-4, we were testing text strings up, right? In our code, like we did last month, we are interacting with an agent and say, hey, tell me about this. Or, I want to learn about I want to learn about the Texas Revolution, right? I want to synthesize what is the best recipe that I should be doing for my own dietary needs and the position of Mars in the sky, right? Weird stuff. What multimodal allows you to do is take in images and sounds and translate that in a way that that your system in the back end can understand. Great use case on this one. In the past, we would have used an unstructured or something to load PDFs into a loader, put it into a record store. The promise of multimodal GPT is that we can ingest and interact with images and video data and sound data natively into our record stores. We know what's coming up really, really interesting. Has anyone played multimodal GPT-4 yet? Okay, cool. And then the last, Whisper V3, I don't know if you saw it, open source. Anyone use Whisper?
Yeah, just tested it a couple of days ago.
Yeah, so what was your experience about it?
Mind blowing.
Mind blowing, why?
Because I was specifically looking for a use case where it could use multiple, multiple languages.
Okay.
And Whisper was the only one that just kept coming up in the results. Nothing, came close. And I tested it down. I was blown away.
For ingest?
For transcription tasks, as well as translation. So those are the two things that I sort of tested out briefly, just to sort of working on some ideas. I want to make sure that it was possible. Yeah.
I'm just curious what he's using for how does it handle the same thing as speaker? How many speakers have been able to
I've only tested myself so far, but since the results are promising, I'll do some more research into it.
Yeah. Hard problem.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm really excited.
From what I've seen in the LangChain project, it's place being updated to support more support within a
week, be going to a wedding and coming back and seeing
functionality. But I think it's really cool. Other announcement, the Hacker Hoedown going tomorrow. One of our members. I sent it excellent. Yeah. Throw it out there. Now, what else should we have done that I didn't do? We have enough time facing people. Does anyone role with come around and saying your name, what you're interested in, like what you're looking for in this user? Sound good? I'll start off. Here's Colin. I'm interested in LangChain because I love open source projects, and I've seen the value in my business of taking away risk from a due diligence process. I'm really interested in seeing how I can integrate that to consumer product development too, as end users interact with their products in interesting ways. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Karim. I'm a software developer transitioning into AI. Mostly interested in Gen AI, and interested in meeting people, sharing ideas, and hopefully, getting inspired.
I'm Karim. I've been doing data science and analytics and machine learning, and I don't know, whatever you want to call it. Now we can call it AI now, I think, finally. For a while, mostly in startups, mostly in Austin, and have been having a lot of success using these technologies with different clients to solve some very interesting problems that even 18 months ago would have been infeasible. And now, we're getting them done and shipped and delivered inside of a quarter. And it's pretty remarkable. And I'm just very interested to see how it all develops, and want to be a part of this kind of burgeoning community of people who share that in.
Awesome.
Hi everyone, thanks Emma. I'm a founder of a company that develops software for complex entity due diligence and identity verification. I'm a retired developer. I don't write code anymore, but now we are kind of getting back into it. And the funny, so I'm interested in agents and developing agents. Love the work that we do. A lot of it's automated, but a lot of the things that you said that were not possible a year ago are now becoming possible. So we can see today. I'm here.
Hi, I'm William. I'm a software developer. I've been using AI to Copilot a little bit to do some coding. I'm a full stack developer, so for the backend. I'm interested in LangChain to see how different models think of different actions based on input, different flows, based on logic. Awesome.
Hi, I'm Andrew. I run a small business based on bringing together and solution and we're using a lot of AI in order to analyze and understand what is the and how this connects with what we know exactly and what we do not have to do this. We have a tools pipeline stakeholder vector database. And I'm sure that engineer at the end of the page just not a lot of things, but I've heard it before, but I I'm sure that it's going
Awesome.
Hi, my name is Karim Lalani, and not a developer. I'm an early stage startup strategist. I'm here to learn. I'm here to see what possible there are things to do. And it's great.
as we just also what is our water? You know, I think back then I was we were the people going. I come back
Yeah.
so we don't say the chance to get involved in the community, share ideas. So I'm here and I'm very impressed. David, the engineer, and I'm here to the talk. Right there. I actually decided to maybe about a year ago or so, and I was in AI, and now looking at it all higher up again. So I'm going to take AI applications and going to do applications in space. For example, so working in space for years. So right now we're trying to be PD for the practice for NASA.
Hello. Nice to meet you.
We're having this too, which is the third stage. We're going to be going on the moon. We're going to be PD, but there's no PD while working on it. And we're going to be going to bed, which means that they're going to be talking together. They're going to be with a beautiful table with it. And so the next mission is the space between it and the surface. So to be able to use AI to do communication and network the communication and command with the aircraft. So, essentially, super look. I've worked in financial services for 15 years on LangServe. Companies, how do we do? I need land model on energy came out. And I was like, wow, this is first. So I've spent like in the last 6 months on knowledge, like anything transformers, whole business with them, look around it, and just figuring out who's more than finally and make more money.
That money looks great. Awesome. Thank you.
On books, I thought that started with building AI influencers and the thing started for structure and know about it. I just learned yesterday code that I didn't get is that license. So fast enough going. So before we stay up to date. Yes, I actually work for a startup with finance. So
My name is Carlos. I'm co-host tonight. I just want to say, I've never heard the word before. Pretty much. Hey, that's awesome. What am I?
I need to start spinning the bodies into space.
That's right. I've been collaborating with developers and engineers and whatever, playing with people build software for a decade as a product person. I started projects. Recently, data resources, and we have a company that helps people launch new ventures, especially how to do a company for a particular reason that can help folks make more money. And I'm interested in space because I have personal interest in especially in development, probably the most meaningful thing that has happened with the humanity since maybe the risks, maybe putting the atom, maybe some combination of those things. So I want to stay really close to what's happening, and I want to help foster a community of people who are trying to do interesting things and things that are good for civilization. So very happy about it. That's what I'm doing.
Hi everyone. When a starting developer, I've been open now a couple of years. Very free to be back here, but kind of interested with the software. Kind of trying to network, meet people, more of our community. I've never been part of like the sort of project before. Trying to find something that you have and all that pretty clear. I feel like this is something I did not. And people talk about LLMs with these things all the time. So there's some requirements that they do.
Yes, for about 2 years of finance guy, about 2 years, but also a lot of data scientists. I really appreciate all the years of a lot of three research analysts that we were doing. So I can computer do it better, certainly. And now it's again at relevant level stage of that. Now it's still something with a lot of kind of basically so I'm excited about it. I'm also like antsy because I feel like it's gonna happen one day that I see the sort of something that impacts and it's like you guys all said it all so fast. It's exciting, it's hard so I'm really excited.
Yeah.
I have implementing system there. So firstly, I'm making the to optimize the step and recommend better item or the reader.
So I'm here from Turkey, and new business that here actually. I'm working as a software developer in a small store, small store. Also developing marketing tools with AI, like generating blogs and images on our media. A lot of people in the AI tool or something like that, or using inside the company, trying to know more about the LangChain now. Thank you.
My name is Richard, and I do GPU hardware design for NVIDIA. So I kind of want to see the flip side of that. I want to kind of learn what LangChain LLMs are kind of doing down and kind of see what information I can bring back to the hardware design, since these things are all pretty much running on NVIDIA GPUs. And I also want to see how I can leverage it for processor design, both whether that's, writing pieces of hardware code that are replicated that we don't need to think about ourselves at the time or even develop ourselves. And then also just for things like searching, bug databases and getting summaries of the bugs, or going through documentation and getting links to other places to kind of summarize all this stuff, since on the hardware end there's just a lot of information and facts about how everything works, and the documentation can be very dense sometimes. So I'm just kind of curious how I can, I guess, use LangChain and other tools that can help with that. So yeah.
Awesome. Thanks everyone for sharing their perspective, what they're here for, what they're coming out for. Some of the common themes that I heard from everyone here was one, fast-moving projects, right? When we shift in technology, a tectonic shift, as we heard us say, this is like the invention of the web browser, that you're either in that front vanguard or you're behind. You talked about, I wish I would have gone to Silicon Valley. I did that in 19, right? And it worked out. Glad I'm gone.
Welcome back.
Yes, thank you. Welcome back to Texas. But yeah, the thing I love about Silicon Valley is every night of the week I can go to Stanford, I can go to Berkeley, I can go in the city. I can nerd out like I never wanted to. I could soak in knowledge, I could gain connections with people, and I could be totally lost in the sauce. But because it was completely new, I was picking up enough of those facts that when it distilled into something that I could actually use, somehow, some way, I actually was a smart guy in the grand scheme of things. And so I'm really happy and eager to see those of us here in Austin connecting together, right? And the other things that I heard were a wide range of business perspectives, technical perspectives, whether we're technologists, future technologists, aspiring people, or somewhere in between. We see the potential for these projects in this community to help us drive whatever the heck's going to be in the future, whether it's creating chipsets to drive cars, or driving GPUs, or whether you're driving us to space beyond. Right? So thank you so much for sharing. And let's kind of move on. Speaking of sharing, we have so many smart people here. I'm happy to amplify all of us if we can. Please, this is an official call for papers. This project is moving so fast. We don't know what's going to be released at the end of the month, right? Karim posted onto Discord like, "Yo, I got this thing. Okay, cool. Oh, it's great." Took a look at it. I'm like, that looks really great. Some of the things that we were planning on covering way further down the road, which is using Llama 2, or using a local LLM, so we're not pushing data to an AI. This is right. So I want to thank our first user speaker. I don't know the word right now. There's my brain back in the fresh right now. But please, if you have something to share, if you want to just showcase a little bit of code you've done, don't have to be the smartest one, don't have to be the newest one. Show what you got, right? I believe this is a space where all of us can learn our own share. It's there in the spreadsheet. There's a form there, but you can pop on the Discord. And we're all there to support each other. We also have a weekly community call, right? Around planning these things, about 30 minutes. I think it's at 2 o'clock on Thursdays. Usually post a thing on the Discord, so just on a Google Meet. No pressure, but if you want to contribute in any way, right? Whether you just want to cheer us on, whether you want to help organize something, these things grow by all of us coming together and taking on a role. Okay, so on that note, I want to turn things over to Mr. Karim Lalani. He's going to demonstrate local LLM access using Mistral 7B, and give a brief introduction also to LangChain expression language reviews inside of it. His code is found inside the 101 folder under MISC, if you put it there. And on that note, I'll be quiet and hand it over to you. Will you share your screen, please? Sure. Technology's complicated. Yeah. Awesome.
Okay. And entire screen.
Now see.
Okay. Who here is familiar with just show of hands with Mistral? Mistral 7. Okay. Who's familiar with Llama? A lot more people. Okay, great. Who's familiar with ChatGPT? Everybody. So the Colin introduced so when I first attended the session we did last 2 weeks ago, the exercise that Colin walked through, it was something that I had been looking for, sort of as an excuse to get into LangChain. LangChain was something that I'd started hearing about, and I was just afraid of the rabbit hole, really. But when I saw Colin walk through the exercise, I said, okay. And then he shared the source code. That really helped me sort of dig into the code, because it's not a lot of code for the first exercise. And that right at the same time, I was sort of having conversations internally with my friends about, would it not be nice to have capabilities like OpenAI's, but at a smaller scale for your own, internal, knowledge stores. Maybe it's IP that you don't want to ship. Even if OpenAI says, or even if Amazon says, oh, if you pay us, we won't share your data. But once it's gone, it's gone. You don't want to hear about it in a data breach announcement that, customers might have been affected. So, and I wasn't paying too much attention to the LLM space as much, closely just, maybe following along from a distance. But then, for whatever reason, Mistral's announcement sort of caught my attention. And because all of a sudden, everybody was talking about it. And I think the comparison that was being made was the Mistral 7 billion model was outperforming Llama's 13 billion parameter model. And that Mistral models could be run locally on a CPU even. The whole idea being that they were developing something for commodity hardware where you might not have a lot of horsepower available to you. I think there's even a conversation about the model size being so small that you may even be able to run it on your mobile phones. And so when you hear things like that, you're no longer not paying attention. So I started, listening, finding as many YouTube videos about it as I could, trying to get the initial immersion into it. And then that was it until I attended the meetup. And I knew that you could, because everybody in the YouTube video would show a notebook, and they would say, "Oh, we'll use LangChain for this." I'm like, "Oh, interesting, LangChain." And then Colin showed a couple exercises, very little code, the possibilities. Now, of course, we were just giving a taste of what was to come, but and then. Of course, he shared it on GitHub. So I went home. I started looking through it. First thing I did was I had to make sense of what the code was doing. I had the information in all of the exercise, information that Colin had shared, and I started sort of going through line by line. I said, okay, what did Colin say about this? And I started just putting some notes around it. It's okay. This is great, but I still, the piece where you were sending stuff over to OpenAI was not sitting, it was like I wanted to do something that could be self-contained. I said, okay, Mistral example seemed like could get me there. So I started looking at what do I need to do to rewire Colin's code for it to start running locally with Mistral. And that in itself ended up being, so with Colin's 101 exercise and the experience I had with implementing it with Mistral gave me a lot sort of insight into how not just LangChain, but also Streamlit supposed to function, because there's really two different technologies we're looking at, right? We're talking about LangChain, but we're really doing it within the lens of Streamlit. And Streamlit comes with its own learning curve. And Colin makes it really effortless when he talks about it. But so this one is actually, this one's hosted, the first version that I was, briefed the one-on-one exercise with Mistral. I found out that Hugging Face lets you host applications. You can pay to get GPU, but you can host it on CPU as well for free. So I said, okay, let me give that a try. And this is actually a chatbot running. Yes. Let's try that. All right. So one little change was, since there's no APIs anymore because you're running it locally, so okay, maybe I can use that space for system prompt. And just did a short chat here. I'm not going to do a chat on the phone because it's running on CPU and it's really slow. But you can hold coherent, this is a question answer one. This one doesn't have memory. So if I ask it the same thing twice, it's going to give me the same answer. It won't know that it's already given that to me. This is running on Hugging Face's hardware. Yeah, so a non-GPU instance. CPU. Yeah, but if I run this locally, I get a far better performance out of it. However, this is not what we are here to look at. So I went back. I had a conversation with Colin and Charles, and I said, okay, let me see if I can refit the code back into a format that we could then sort of put side by side with the one-on-one exercise, and then you can see both, and then say, okay, oh, this is what you would change to get to this. So this is the exercise. Let's see. This is Hugging Face Streamlit. This is not what. This is the one-on-one exercise. Okay. So this is the original exercise. Let me bring it up a little bit. This is the original exercise that is posted on GitHub. One of the things that we worked on the first session, and the actual meat of the code is right here in this box. And I'll scroll it up a little bit, and you'll see. That's it. This is all it takes to set up a simple chat application that uses Streamlit with LangChain and lets you talk to OpenAI. I went back, and when I started working on it, no, well, this is a proof of concept. Yeah. So those things were sort of like deliberately left out. But you're right. For more complex applications, well, especially when you're sending stuff out into outer space, those things matter. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry I can't let you do that, Dave. So this is the code bit, and I'll scroll through it once, and you'll see that it no longer actually looks very similar. Although I promise you, it's very similar. We just have to do things slightly differently when it comes to running your own model using LangChain. The thing with OpenAI, using OpenAI or similar services like Anthropic's Claude and whatnot, is somebody else is hosting the infrastructure. So you're getting near real-time responses back because they're running, OpenAI is running 10,000 nodes. Currently from what I read recently. Which is why you can make the call to OpenAI. They've already done the model priming and model setup, and you're sort of getting to take advantage of that infrastructure and all of that priming. When you're running a model locally, you have to do that. You need to have the necessary infrastructure, the hardware. Even if you're running it locally, the model weights need to be loaded up in the memory. And that takes time. I remember you mentioning that you tried the Llama stuff and it was slow. And yeah, because it takes a while for all of that model, because this I'm using a compressed version of the Mistral model. So I'm not even using the actual, the OG Mistral model. I'm using a 4-bit quantized version, which means that it's a super compressed version. I mean, without necessarily losing too much quality. And that model still comes around 4 gigabytes in size. Just to give you perspective, in order to run this on a GPU, you need to have a GPU with at least, with minimum 6 gigabytes of VRAM, because this entire model will be loaded up into the GPU. And that's where a lot of the time that it takes to load it up. So initially, I essentially went in to this code and I say, okay, where is the call? Oh, this is the call to OpenAI. Let me put it over there. This is where you're, essentially chatting with the chatbot. What ends up happening is Streamlit will run this code over and over and over again, which means that the model gets loaded over and over and over again. It takes a few seconds for the model to load up. That's why the code looks slightly differently. Streamlit has this concept of caching long-running operations. So the changes that I made were essentially loading the model once and caching it. That way, when the code gets rerun, it's not going to go and download the model again. It's not going to reload those weights in the memory. And then with OpenAI, with ChatGPT, there's already a predefined chat template. Mistral is not a chat model. Mistral is an instruct model, which means that the same chat template doesn't work with it. So from its documentation and some examples I found online, this is what it expects. You first tell it what your expectations are from it in a system-like prompt, and then you give it an example. So we construct a prompt by providing that template in it. And in here, let's see. Trying to see. So all of that, what's encapsulated in this one line here, because you're just making API calls, but instead you're doing it locally, is where all of this boilerplate that you're seeing here, all of this extra code, is there in service of that one line that you would otherwise do when you're making call to OpenAI. LangChain, really the power of it is in the chain part of it, right? With the expression language, I think, because prior to expression language, you had individual components for different variations of the chains that you would create. They would look unique, and you would still compose them. But I think with the expression language, they sort of made it even more composable. So now you could do stuff like, okay, I'm going to start with a prompt. In my prompt, I'm going to expect so-and-so input in such placeholders. This input, I'm going to now pass it to a language model. Out of that, I'm going to get an output, but out of that output, I'm going to do some further processing. Or in case of when there's memory involved, well, you might have alternate chains going through it, because you say, okay, I'm getting an output here. I want to take the input that I passed in, and I want to combine both of them and store it into the memory. So what initially you would look at the conversational buffer memory and say, oh, this is so simple. And now you look at it, it might look a little complicated, but when you start looking at it from a decomposability standpoint, it all starts to click, and you say, okay, what else can I do with it? In this one, because this is not this is a very simple application. The chain looks very simple. Really, there's two components to the chain. If I can find it, let's see here. Okay, it's a prompt feeding into the language model. That's about it, because I'm only interested in the response out of it. There's no memory here. But if you look at the model with where there's memory involved, then I have prior to right after the prompt, it splits into two paths, because I need to send the input. Because I can't, if I send it, once I send the input to the language model, I've lost the input, essentially. I only get the output from it. So I need to preserve the input. I have to create an alternate path for the input to flow in, and then recompose it back with the question, so that I can now send that to the memory. But for the most part, I've tried to document the code. Again, the documentation was me trying to make sense of the code, so that I could go back and I could say, okay, what is really happening here? Which is why I've tried to sprinkle it all over the place, specifically, especially because when you see stuff like this is all opaque stuff. Like, what's happening? I have no idea. This is where you're setting up. You're feeding the Mistral model into the Llama CPP class, essentially loading it into memory in a format that you could then work. That'll then work with LangChain. Let's see again. I'll try to load it up. This might.
But I like that he does the app, and I've been trying to get to trying to make all the labs as portable as possible. So run them inside of the lab. Some has more success than others, but I think this might be the first time I've seen a working Llama instance on the lab. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, no, this is, and it was really, I mean, well, again, I have to sort of thank you for sort of inspiring and motivating to sort of push me in this direction. Where I actually, this is something that I wanted to do for a while, just didn't know where to start. And the one exercise gave me the perfect template to follow. So here, first thing, I mean, we'll install the prerequisites. LangChain. I'm using Hugging Face Hub because it makes it has utility functions to download models that are hosted on Hugging Face. I'm using Streamlit. I'm not using OpenAI. Again, that's the intention here because you want to use an alternate. We are using the Mistral 7B model. What I'm going to do is this step happens in the app itself, but this is where it's downloading the 4 GB model, and that takes a few seconds. So I'm short-circuiting that, pre-downloading it. That way, and you'll see the same code in there, but it's so what this code does is the HF Hub download will look at the model that you saw and say, well, let me see if I have this in cache. Or if I don't have it in cache, let me download it from Hugging Face. And the outcome of it is actually the path where it stores locally. So you see the path. So this is where it's stored. So anytime I call this code again, it's not going to download it. It's just going to give me the path because, oh, I have this, so I use it. So this. Now we are download the Llama CPP Python package, which is what gives us access to the Llama CPP class. We're compiling it with the GPU support. This step takes a little while, a few seconds, but this is going to be the final prep step. You could run the same exercise locally. You would just not pass in this flag. You would just say pip install Llama CPP. There's actually, if you have a Mac, the M2 chip, then there's another flag that you can pass that'll make it run. I think it's called Llama Metal on instead of Llama QLabs on. I think documentation has that, and that'll make it run on natively on the laptop itself. But like I said, you could run this on CPU. I mean, it runs here. For this time, they gave me a very slow CPU. I remember the first time I ran it, it was running relatively, in a bearable speed. But now, I mean, I'll type something and I can come back after the exercise. It'll still be trying to sort of. Yeah. While it's doing that, again, this is the code that I was talking about. Where I said download model and prepare LLM. I've marked it as a resource, cache resource, because I don't want to do this step again and again. Because essentially, think of Streamlit application as a script that runs anytime anything changes with user interaction. And that's great, except that when you have long-running applications, something that requires setup, you don't want that to happen again and again. Even with something like the Hugging Face Hub download, this, yes, it's short-circuited now by using that. But loading the model in memory, again, will take a few seconds every single time, and you don't want that happening. And you'll see. So this step is done. Let's go ahead and write this file to disk so that we can launch our Streamlit app, get our IP, Let's do this. Open up a tunnel.
For those that were for the one-on-one, it's a little hack, so I'll just get what it makes out. Structure.
Yeah. So now the app is running. Now you're seeing these things. This is where the cache statements were, right? I said, okay, cache this step. But the first thing it does, it downloads, but we already have it downloaded. The second thing it does is it loads those the model in memory. So you saw how long it took for it to load that 4 gigabytes of that model into the GPU. But now that it's done, it's ready. I'm happy today. Okay, let's let me go ahead and do this. This is a question answer model. This is not a conversational model because we didn't hook up any memory here. So I can ask it, what is your name? So my name is, Lama Mistral. Also, okay, hi, my name is Karim. So, okay, hi, Karim, how can I assist you? I say, okay, what is my name? So, well, I don't have access to your name. Well, of course not. So, let's go ahead and, or say, okay, tell me a joke. Why do scientists trust atoms? Because they make up everything. Don't trust it. Okay, now if I asked it, okay, tell me another joke. Here's another one. Same thing back. It doesn't know it all gave. Yeah. Yeah. That's the only one it knows. but yeah, this is essentially running a Llama model, Mistral in this case, on a GPU locally. Again, you could run this on your own infrastructure. You build a RAG around this thing, and your data is within your within your data centers. Yes.
Here's a question. So I understand the principle behind running the machine locally or similarly, whatever inside your environment, getting a big black box. But I'm curious to know more the specifics of the opportunity, maybe something like just in production setting.
So in my case, I volunteer for a nonprofit, and I provide sort of engineering technical support, and they have a case management system, and the data in there is really sensitive, and this nonprofit is very what's the word I'm looking for? They are very, very cautious about stuff. So everything has to, a certain type of data has to be on their infrastructure. Other stuff, they are okay to send it to the cloud. And case management details, because it's got PII information, it's got some really sensitive, information about individuals that they work with, and they just don't feel confident because, with every promise of, we don't look at data, there's equally, if not more, cases of data breaches where the set data has been compromised. This organization is very particular about that. It's like, we'll give you anything within whatever their means. They'll let me work with it, but it's okay. We can't ship this data to the cloud. So
you see this as a fundamental rollout like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. For them, if I told them ChatGPT is like, thanks, but no thanks. We'll continue to work with our tedious manual process, but something like this changes the conversation completely, because now they can also access and take advantage of the benefits of and the promise of large language models to automate and to sort of improve the efficiencies of a lot of the processes that the only reason that they're not able to do now is because they would require shipping data outside of their secure setups. Yeah. So let me see if this system prompt works or not. Okay, let's see. Answer. I can't type. Answer user questions in in short sentences and provide a fun fact about the topic there. Possible. Okay, let's try this. What is the capital? France. Capital of France is Paris. Fun fact. And but yeah, it was because this is really what got me. The system prompt is really what got me interested in messing around with large language models, because the ability to set the persona of a chat experience. I mean, that's really something, because now you can. I remember when I was messing around with memory involved. I said, okay, you're taking a persona of a crooked politician who will say anything to get votes and make all sorts of false promises, and just to see the conversation that it was coming up with, or just to deny any sort of request for information, just to dodge it. And it's like, it was, not surprising that they're looking at large language models to generate not fake data, but training data for political polling and stuff. It's like, okay, you're taking up the persona of somebody living in rural Kansas. Answer, what are the concerns that you have? And then they would ask questions, and they would get the responses back. And that's just something really fascinating. No, this is not. This is Mistral was trained by, I think, an ex-Meta employee. He was part of the Llama 1 actually effort. So this is an open source model, not trained on the data at this time. But there's resources out there that let you create adapters, LoRa adapters on top of this one.
I think you're asking what that you use this for this.
It was, I think, everything else that I was listening, everything else that was out there when I was researching was, okay, it was either Falcon or Llama, and there was nothing really interesting coming out of it, except for Falcon, you needed a really large parameter model. So, and for me, I needed something that I could run on my hardware. You could run all of these and even larger models on something like Collab instance, for example. But for me, that was similar to shipping your data out. So I wanted a proof of concept that I could take back and say, okay, here's a laptop. I'm not connected to the internet, and I can run this on my computer, and just have that level of confidence that any application you build around that is going to inherit the same characteristics. That you don't have to worry about your data escaping, or sort of missing out on the advantages of sort of employing something like a large language model, in your to improve your day-to-day.
I think that's a really interesting point. I think that everybody here, to one degree or another, lives inside the IT power of the tech world, but a lot of the world still lives in like a very antiquated, like Microsoft Word and documents are the source of truth for everything. Hey, did you send that to me? And are we still faxing each other, right? And I just think that's a really interesting, like very kind of empathetic thing to explore here. So what does it look like? How are these people who are otherwise going to abstain from the conversation? I think that's really hope that they do.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
So I work for a younger company, and they're like really concerned about their intellectual property. I don't have access to that UPA or plugin-based library and block it. So I'm kind of having
yeah, no, absolutely. So you don't need to use Hugging Face. Hugging Face is just a utility sort of function too. So I didn't have to download my original version of the code that I had written. Actually didn't include Hugging Face. Yes.
Can you talk But can you merge? Yeah, I can show it. But can you merge a code that's tested locally? It's going to show as well. Don't do it now.
Yeah, no, I can do that. Yes, I have it. I have it on my machine. You want me to put it in the same miscellaneous folder?
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, it's not in a notebook. But it's essentially what I had adapted from. Where did I lose it? Oh, here. Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
we're using these notebooks to demonstrate work, to demonstrate concepts, make it formal, accessible. So at the end of the day, as we start to build our application, all you're going to use the local integrated development environment, all you're going to containerized them. As things be important for, it's good that we'll have access to all the
No, absolutely. Yeah. So essentially, this is what I had set it out with the Streamlit app.py from the original exercise, and I started just hacking on it when I first started sort of messing around with it. So yeah, I will upload that one as well. Absolutely, yeah. Yeah. But to answer your question, yes, you don't need Hugging Face to launch this. You just need you can create the same application with just LangChain and a pre-downloaded version of the model. You just have to point to the model manually.
Once you find that,
What?
I'm sorry, in
The
model. So,
The model is hosted on Hugging Face. Yes, you can download it without. You can just go to the Hugging Face. Let's see, Hugging Face. Mhm.
So I can see you are using OpenAI API, so some information for OpenAI or not?
I'm not using OpenAI. Not in my exercise. The first one uses OpenAI.
Ah,
Yeah. So that was the original template that I followed.
What do you need to do that?
101.3 has so there's an exercise already with which has conversational memory in it in the original content.
in one labs, it's for example, the check off memories. Effectively, you find memory anyways. Short term, long term, there's a concept of long-term memory, semantic memory, procedural memory. They can scan it, although all these improvements may all turns down into the library. But effectively, you define so simple case of an in-memory database, and you set a tag or a key for memory of that agent, and you're able to search the chat response memory. If you want to have more persistent memory, you can put that into a vector storage with step persistence. And you can also, there's some really interesting use cases changing how we think about agents. Is agents have access to zero, agents have access to shared memory, almost like an RDNA cluster. That's just right? Take it like shared communication model. That way, it's no one about us.
If you want a general search term for this, it's retrieval augmented generation. So retrieving back whatever it is that's been persisted off and vectorized embeddings of other responses or just a large corpus of information you want to interact with, and then generate text from it is retrieved and not just store it.
Is it like a standard memory, you see things, and then you resend everything to the model? So every time you kind of resend the lost 80%, with the addition to the lost 50% to the model. Is that how it works?
So that's the conversational memory buffer. It's basically, yeah.
And then there's a lot. So in the simplest of terms, without complicating, there's a buffer that you can code that knows for the model knows we can put that in an application, and then you can get it limit the scope of what buffer it needs to load into the wall. See, on this side, I did talk about like course we're doing yeah, manager memory and multiple variants and locations. And there's established patterns we've seen in our groups, but there's more emerging patterns. Like talk about like shared agent access. Really interesting space. And in our next labs,
LangServe, there's a very easy way to pull down templates where you have that template and open that template for editing. It's a way to use it. You can actually look at certain cases of how
I just want to say, just so everybody knows, in case you don't know, Colin is really stepping up to the plate and being a really great steward of this open source body of work that's coming out of what we're doing here, right? So LangChain is up the first project. Colin subscribes to the open source ethos. So everything that we showed here is available in the GitHub. And he spent a lot of time making this instructional and educational. And what Karim did with this is exactly what we hope all of you to do with this, right? Use these code blocks as starting points for you to get into whatever development environment you're comfortable with, hack them together, make it work for you, and then bring it back, and then we'll figure out how to port it back if you're interested in contributing. Port it back to 500 books and then put it up into the GitHub. We really want this to be a growing body of work, and everything that we're talking about, these are all configurable variables in the 500 book that Colin created all the time. There's 3 different versions of us in the lab experience that are all optimal in the lab. You don't have to download anything. You go run it live on the internet and it works. I've had to do a limited amount of care for the most part. It's just there. So like, please go do stuff with this stuff. But this is not really to be like that. They look at us. Kind of thing.
Yeah. So one thing about L2 is basically is a lot of this data we only had 8 voters. The one so we like and the fact that everything's from the set, I'm not doing it here, all I've got 3,000 all here, but I don't access it. Do a search for that here first, so we can take 2 questions and then add a question, put it back in the whole thing. But now, somebody needs to try to, these are moving so fast, and last week did this. Now this is on to everybody else is now we have 100,000. Now I just wonder if now it's not the shift to the target. It looks now so much better, but maybe short for the maybe it's going to be got to get already now it's going to put it out. And there's a few other ways. But it is like we want to go but it we want to go with our own isolated models. We certainly maybe thought about that because that's but you know eyes and the other that is all that
Well, we're going to change it in 3 days.
and the baby face, but I mean, first of all, I think we feel like all together. I think it's like, honestly, it's all says right there. Well, if you look at it, if you think on the sword there, the knowledge of the arsenals of doing there, and we have it's probably a chain make
Yeah, well, I mean, just to work on that, I definitely see that we're going to continue to have foundational models improve. Obviously, OpenAI is just the first to get there. It's probably a perfect fit for the landscape, but I think all of the other models, I don't necessarily see them as being open source flagged as increasingly specialized, right? Using for corrections as people adopt them, right? And create variations on when to do it, right? It very well might be that the good work that Karim did tonight, and the whole movement in the very risk-averse nonprofit space of running Mistral locally, because that's a thing that everybody does. We all just borrow. Oh, I guess this is the thing that we're doing now, right? All the bullshit technology that nonprofits use. And they use it because the other nonprofits use it too, right? Like,
That's all the whole thing works. So, yeah, I mean, because I want to be excited and I'm excited about the increased showcase size and context window for PvP for Turbo. It's like, and I don't think it's everything fighting for us to just like shrink it over there related to that big control.
Yeah, well, and the cool thing about open source, right? So, I remember 25 years ago getting called because websites were down because little DPI. And hearing some friends who had left the Central Valley, California, and ended up at a place called
through the .com, and they're like, "Yo, there's this web server that's full of patches. It doesn't go down. It runs on this Linux thing, free. And if there's a bug, we can all fix it. It's Apache web server. We probably want to use it, right? At the end of the day, I personally have faith in communities, have faith in competition, and have faith that the way of doing things, I don't have to know what's going to be right next tomorrow. I don't have to know what's going to be right today. I just have to solve my problems now, right? And I have to make sure that I'm swimming in that stream, so that when the next release comes out, that I can look at the code, I can look at the community, I can look at the product, and I can evaluate whether that's good for my use case, right? And all of our use cases are different. And then I think it's really neat that the 128,000 byte context window. I personally can't afford to put that on a 40 million unit a year consumer product release. I can't put that on I guess in the last 2 weeks designing 4 million juice boxes, 40 million of them per year. I can't put that on 128 million context window. It'll go broke. Make a penny a box, right? So like, what are you going to do, right? But for a use case where you're in a legal application or you're in space, right? I think the most important thing, we're all learning together, right? And that we're all able to see the use cases, understand them, right? So it'll be different tomorrow. On that note, on difference, thank you so much, Karim. I really appreciate you. Thank you. I learned absolutely so much by reading your code, by listening to you talk. I hadn't gotten that working yet in this way. And so now I have more working code that I can use. Open source is great, if anything, for selfishness. Okay, so let's move on to a little introduction on LangServe. So LangServe got announced 2 weeks ago, released 2 weeks ago. And so LangServe is a tool. If I go back to, actually, let me go back to one of my earlier slides here. I think, no, I'm not going to go back to it. So in last month's meetup, I had a slide of all the things that I needed to do to deploy AI services and applications in my infrastructure. The part where it got up to containerizing an app and pushing it out was 101 through 108, and I think 110 was creating an API abstraction layer and exposing these agents via API. Well, guess what happened in 30 days? All that work got switched down just like that. Now, is the production ready? No, right? But for our goals of getting proof of concepts, we're gonna play with it. Heck yeah! So in LangServe is a tool for really managing LangChain templates, for downloading templates from the LangChain repo, for editing those templates, and really it's abstraction. It creates an API service layer using a project called Fast API. Anyone use Fast API? Awesome. I used it for the first time when using LangChain, or LangServe, should I say. And what it does is it really it puts another level of abstraction layers. So, and if I think back to like Dr. Newth, Art of Computing, professor at Stanford, gives a great Christmas tree talk each year. The one thing that I ever comprehend out of his mouth is that when you can abstract, you should abstract, right? Levels of abstraction. You think of this big cloud thing that happened, right? This is abstraction between a computer in your own place or in a computer someone else's place. What LangServe allows us to do is using a simple CLI interface, almost like a platform engineer's interface or a DevOps toolchain. I really look at it and I'm like, yo, this is like Ansible or Puppet. And so what it allows you to do is put a massive layer of abstraction between commonly reusable code components, and then load those between a simply accessible application programming interface or API layer. What it allows you to, it'll provides a self-documented API, and also loads up a playground, which we'll be interacting with today. I think that's it. So in this case, we'll open up lab 102.1 if you want to follow along. I built this. I pay for my whatever it is collab, and I was notified right before I was on a flight that the terminal portion that I'm being showing through the command line is only available if you pay like the $10 for it. But you can still take the commands instead there. You can run it on your own laptop, all that fun stuff. But I'll see what I can do to make it so it runs free for everyone. Yep, you need an OpenAI key, you need a Google account. Optional is LangSmith. I'm also going to be introducing the concept of being able to ship logs to a web interface where you can start to see what your agents are doing. Right? This is an open beta right now. That's from the LangChain project. There's a lot of new features. If you don't have access to it, you need a GitHub account, or you can use another thing, and then I'll show it to you. But it's pretty cool. It's inside. This is inside of a repo, and this is the notebook. Let's go ahead and click on that. And let's see if I got everything working right. Come on. Okie dokie here. Y'all see that? Open in collab. Make sure it works. Connect to an instance. For those of us that haven't used Google Colab, it's a teaching tool that you'll normally, or it's a tool for managing these Jupyter notebooks, which are effectively Markdown and Python combined. It's used commonly in exploring concepts. It's used commonly if you're showing it like a new feature, a new functionality. It's really easy to hack something together. Using prototyping, I pay the $10 so I get access to a GPU instance on the back end. It runs a little faster. It also persists. Okay. My presentation is in the GitHub repository under resources. And there should be labs, I think, under resources. Let me see.
No.
It's,
Resource implementation.
you found it? Cool. It's funny how the brain kind of shuts down when I'm sitting up top talking, right? Okay, so if you're using LangSmith for our bonus round for debugging, here's the code for connecting to LangSmith, right? So you'll export, you export three things, right? So you say LangChain tracing equals true. We'll export the API key, and then you define a project. So you can define a project in your exports. Inside of LangSmith, there's a web interface. You'll see a whole bunch of your projects together. Inside of your project, you can basically give it its specific name here, so you're not dumping it in. If you don't export it, it'll show up under default. Okay, so a couple of things that I learned from the last time. See this here on the left-hand side right here, secrets? A little key. I'm gonna click on that. And you'll see here that I've defined all my keys inside of Google Colab. The neat thing here that I noticed, anytime I open up a new notebook, guess what follows? My keys, right? Now still, there's a hack that in one of the examples that's in the repo, there's a RAG generation, a RAG tool, retrieval augment generation tool that sucks in, that I suck in a variable, environmental variables file. That's in my Google Drive. That's actually how I used it first. This is probably a little bit more secure. So I want everyone to play with this. Now, if I look at what I'll give an example here. It's really easy to add a key. So OpenAI key _2, and then we'll get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's not the key, but because I don't want to share that with everyone. And we can turn it on and off through this interface, right? I'll go ahead and delete this so I don't confuse it. But it's really interesting. So first I'm going to install the packages. Press play, run anyway. As always, LangChain CLI is really the only critical one. All the other packages were based on some of the templates that I was playing with. And I thought they're really, really interesting, and I didn't like to see it complain. For TikTok and Transformers, if you're using any RAG group, you're going to see it. Hopefully you'll see unstructured for our friends from unstructured. Pretty cool. Okay, so we'll give that a moment to run. Now here is a really fun thing that I did, right? So the Python notebook, if you don't have your key set up, right, add your secret, add OpenAI _ API _ key, and then paste your key in. We'll keep it there. That's the one key that you're going to need right now. We can catch up on all the other stuff. Now, the fun thing that I did here, and I made this inside of this script right here. I made this in ChatGPT, by the way. I told it what I wanted to do. Went back and forth like a couple of times. So what it's doing, by the way, is it's taking these keys that are stored up, and we can take this and move this in any of your notebooks. It's like a really cool tool for not having your keys laying around, not having to have a code that connects back to like the Google Key service, or I don't know if everyone here has your Google Compute Engine all set up. We'll get there over next or a few sessions. What this allows you to do is you can basically comment and uncomment which keys you want to pull into your application here, and then it goes. We'll press play here. Grant access. If you look on the side, it's actually from my code turning on access to the keys that I had available, right? So boom, that went ahead and set a couple keys in my Python environment, pulled this in, and it created a shell script. Now, if you have access, this little thing on the left-hand side right here is a terminal. Boom, we're going to expand that. And this content folder right here, let me make this a little bigger for everyone. This content, it's out of the way here. Content folder is the little folder that's under the key here. So if we look here, see how we have set environmental variables.shell here? We do ls inside of a terminal. What do you know? It's right there. So let's run it. Source. Environment variables.shell. Now, if you're not used to a shell, you can type in something. As long as you just type in the first letters, you can press tab and auto-complete it. For guys like me, it helps me not fat finger things. So now if you see what this shell did, and what this script did is it set those variables, it kind of pulled them into the shell that's running back in Google. Full hacks. We just do what we need to do to get things done. Okay. So now we want to go through and press play on the next one. There's just a little hack that I played with. Oh, is my OpenAI key set, right? So I did a little if-else statement, right? And this os.environ that we're seeing here, this is basically the way Python is saying, look in my operating system environment and seeing if and interacting with it. As we start to bring files and like write reports and bring things in and out, we'll play with this OS environment thing more and more. But not today. Today, we just keep things simple. Okay, so we sourced our file. I want to just make this big so everyone sees it. Now, at the top, when we use pip, we did pip install LangChain CLI, right? So what that did is that gave us some fun things. So if you just type lang and hit tab, we'll see that we have LangChain, LangChain CLI, LangChain server, and LangSmith all installed within our environment. This will work on your laptop, by the way. Right? So in this case, we want to use LangChain as a command. You can either type it or you can just tab it out. Now, want to do LangChain, and then we want to say app. So this is kind of the new LangChain, the LangServe thing. LangChain app, we're going to add a new app. We're going to call it LC-102. What package would you like that? This is actually new. It came out in the last day. It's interactive. Right? So you can add a package manually, or and I'll show you, we'll actually do it the manual way, or you can just type it right now so it automatically does it. So if you think about this as like a Docker file or some sort of easily interactive thing, nice ways to bundle these things. Okay. So if we ls again, we can see that we have LC-102. And we want to change directories with the cd command. And you can just tab it out with capital L. We're in there. ls again, and we see some interesting things. We see this pyproject.toml file, and when we interact with the commands with LangChain, it has to be in the same directory where it can see it, right? we see a README, which you can read if you want. We have, this is newly added in the last day, which is a Docker file. So we want to build this into an application. This thing is moving really, really fast. When I talk about moving 8 steps down to 1, our community, the open source community within LangChain, is working together to make it so we all can bring production applications, right? We have 2 other folders. We have app and packages. Okay, so we'll get into app and package left, but the app is the Fast API app, and packages are the templates which we're pulling down. Okay, so let's start and add our first app. So again, LangChain, maybe I'll spell it correct. LangChain, and we'll say app. So we're interacting with LangServe. We're going to add, and then pirate speak. And before I hit enter on this, I'm going to draw your attention to the link here. Click on this link. This is the templates folder. There are all sorts of templates that you can pull down on here. You want to do text extraction. You want to summarize via Anthropic. You're interested in agents, right? You want to, I heard of PII. You can't leak PII. There's guardrails output parser where you can pull it in and make sure data doesn't go to your back end. All sorts of fun things to do, right? Templates. And if you click on the templates folder, there's the direct list of them. Pop around there as we go down, or after we go into the next section. So let's go ahead. We said LangChain app, add, pirate-speak. Press enter. Would you like to pip install -e the template or templates? -e means you can edit it. So it's not only is it pulling down this template, but it's allowing you to edit it. And then if you were, say, to initialize a Git repository in this folder, right? You could then go ahead and check it in. You could go ahead and make this code yours. So yes, I want to use pip to install it and make it editable. So what's doing now is actually pulling from the repo. You don't have to do it. It's pulling from the repo. In this case, it's in a Docker instance running up in Google, right? And it's pulling the files down. So let's give it a moment to go and do that. Pulling down the dependencies, package managers, right? It successfully built the application. Okay, so at the end of this, you see it successfully installed OpenAI and it's installed Pirate Speak. Now there's another step that we have to do to make this a functional app. So let's highlight these 2 lines. The first one is, we've covered this in our 101 course, our 101 meeting. Which is how we install applications in Python, right? So from the Pirate Speak chain, basically from this folder, import or install this chain as Pirate Speak chain. So let's load this software template. And the next one is, this is Fast API code, from what I understand, which is adding a route. So it's basically an application runs on the back end, put a route to a web interface. So add the routes, connecting the app, the Pirate Speak chain. And I believe the app is a default Fast API app, I think. And then the path is the URL. Okay, so we're going to copy both these things. Control C. There's multiple ways you can do this, by the way. Most of the time I open up a tool called VI or VIM, and I use some key commands for moving around. But this is an easy lab, so let's go ahead and drill down. So remember, we looked at these folders, right? So LC1 and 2 was what we created when we added the app. We have an app folder and we have a packages folder. For now, we're going to go inside our app folder and we're just going to double click on server.py. What do you know? Okay, so enter, paste this. Let's move this up to the top because I like it pretty. And as you've seen from my notebook, not all my code is pretty, but thanks for bearing with me. Okay, so we have from Fast API, we've importing Fast API. So this is our API server, right? The redirect responses allows us to talk. LangServe, we're adding routes into the API server. And then in this case, we're loading up the Pirate Speak chain application, which if we go into our repo that we were browsing, Pirates Speak. It's an application that's sitting here on GitHub. Okay, so let's go ahead and we can either do file, save, save a copy and drive. Did not do that first. Okay, so let's just go ahead and run all this really quick. My apologies. And we'll source it. Sorry about that. Bear with me. Does anyone have any questions so far as we're waiting for this thing to install? Colin obviously is still jet lagged from coming back from Colombia and didn't go through his little check boxes. There we go.
I have a question for the group. How many people are using the Pro version that's the lab? They're working at all.
I don't know what's. I'm paying for something. I don't know what's the level I got, but
Yeah, it's the $10 one, the cheap one. Yeah. It makes it so you don't get your instances kicked off all the time. It's really annoying. You're doing something. You're like, oh yeah, I got kicked off. I was like, okay, it's coffee. Okay, let's source environment variables. Okay, we got that. Okay, chain. New C-102. Enter, skip that. And CDLC 102. LangChain. App add pirates. Speak. Yep. Okay, we're almost all caught up. What I think is really interesting is that it's this easy to deploy and install an application. So like a little bit of work that we did over again, but not too much. We let it pull down all of its code. Let it get us the code to implement into our API server. We'll be right back where we were. Okay, cool. Now, if you're doing this work, if you're doing this for your work, I suggest you don't show this to your boss. I suggest you check it in a repo and you deploy it through like a Docker container. And this is at least one sprint's worth of work. Just, same. Okay, we're down in LC102. We go into our app, which is our fast API server. We go into server.py. We go ahead and add our route and our from statement. Move it up to the top so it's pretty. Save. Save successfully. Cool. Okay, so now we can go through. We close that so we can see our nooch. Let's start our server. LangChain. Serve. What's happening? Oh, crap. Do a demo, lose a sale. They just updated some code. Oh, man. This worked this morning. Okay. What is manager not implement type get input schema?
Oh, you
have an idea?
Server line.
This is working.
Okay. Oh, I didn't run it in Colab.
What's that?
I didn't run it in Colab. I ran it locally.
Yeah.
And it's working fine.
Okay.
So maybe a copy paste issue.
It may be. Let me see. So you ran it locally.
Yeah.
And it worked.
Mhm.
Okay. Hold on. Let's see what we got here. Let's look at our server.py.
You need to remove the not implemented.
Oh, thanks. Thank you, sir. Good morning, Colin. Okay,
It's in your instructions.
maybe I should follow my own instructions. What do you think? Oh my gosh. 5 days in Colombia, just saying. Okay, so what happened here? I want to point out two things. Thank you, Karim. So it wasn't working, and then it started. I didn't interact with this application. I didn't go back in the command line. I didn't write any code in my deployment framework. It picks it up. So LangChain service looking for the files that we add as the applications, and it picks it up. So let's look at what happened. Okay, so LangServe defines the routes at docs, right? Found that server.py was changed, sig-upped effectively, and pulled it back up, right? Started LangChain, and it created a chain. It brought the chain pirate speak live and brought it into a playground. Now I'm going to show you a couple things of how we get this going. So again, we're running this inside of Google Colab right now, right? So we got to do a little hack to get out. So first thing we do, we curled icon has IP, and we figure out our IP. So 34 dot whatever this is. Next, we use npx to tunnel out of our Colab instance to a short URL, right? So if anyone's used these 3-word locations around the world, you can give 3 words and find someone within about, I think, 100 feet in the world. Do the same thing with a URL. What this does, it created 40 schools punch.local.it. Now, every time I restart this application manually, if I restart it automatically, I don't have to go redo this URL. If I Control-C and I restart the application, I gotta go and establish another tunnel. So what I'm doing is I'm actually connecting port 8000, which is where LangServe starts on, basically patching that to a normal web interface externally. Or use this in your own data center, put it behind like an Nginx load balancer or something, right? You can put auth in front, you put whatever. Okay, so let's go and get this thing out of the way. Okay, cool. So now we have, let's click on this. For those who haven't seen before, I'm going to paste in that IP address. You only have to do this once every 7 days if you don't restart the service. What this allows me to do, this is an API interface in front of an AI microservice. This is an API microservice, which I just deployed a templated AI application. Okay, so let's go a little deeper. I can see a documented AI application, actually. All right, again, you're doing this at work. Don't show your boss. Oh, wrong way. Only show your boss the outcome. Where the heck was my window? Fast API Swagger. Okay, cool. So always you can go to docs and you can get the full list of what applications are running. So we know that Pirate Speak is running up on here. Okay, so let's go to Pirate Speak. Detail not found, that's a good thing. So if you want to access directly, one interesting thing I didn't get around to was putting in a simple Streamlit interface, connecting back to this API to build our own interface, right? But you should be able to combine the one-to-one examples with some simple API code. Again, it's not going to be authenticated, but we can hack it together. But for now, we're going to go to the built-in playground. But for each of the apps that you launch, you'll have a playground. Okay. So text. I'm going to say, hello. Thank you for attending the Austin LangChain users group. Community makes the world around. Okay, let's press start. Let's run our application. Ahoy! Thank you for attending the Austin LangChain Mateys group. Community be what makes the world go around. So for anyone that's written a translation application, the past or use a translation application, these things are complicated, right? Let's go into the code. Let's see how complicated this is. I think I'm running it here. Terminal? Am I? No, I'm not running it there. Am I running it here? I'm right here. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and go into our files here. Now again, we can use all the tools. We'll make this easy for everyone here. So we go to packages in that LC102. Get that out of the way. My Chris died on me. Hold on one moment. I think that I might need to go and reset my microphone real quick. Bear with me one moment. Settings. Off. Great. Okay. We go to here. Now let's go ahead and go into Pirate Speak and the Pirate Speak again and see this chain.py file. Let's double click it. Okay. So we talked about LangChain expression language earlier on. Karim went over it, right? Where all this complicated chain code, all this the complicated prompts that we have to do in our code. Well, this is an example of LCL, right? This is an example of taking a very simple human message that will then pass down and do complicated stuff on the back end. So we download an application for Pirate Speak. Okay. Well, if anyone's here from the 90s, do some hacksaw speak. But how complicated is it to build a translation application and then to change that entire application for a non-standard language? Let's find out. Let's press save. Go back to our terminal. Oh, wait, something happened. I'm reloading. How neat. Application started complete. No way, did we just deploy a new application? Let's go back into our playground. Put the same, well, I should spell it right. Put the same message, no, I won't. Okay. Put the same message in, press start. Holy smokes. We just wrote a completely new application. It's now if you ever watch hackers or, little dorks on the IRC messaging boards, right? Right? We replace our letters with numbers, right? We want to go even further, right? We want to make it even way dorkier than this. Excuse me? Elfish. Lord of the Rings. Terminal. Oh, wait. New application. Playground. Let's see what it does. Greetings, mayhap, and a heartfelt thanks for gracing the gathering of the awesome LangChain user group. Verily, it is thy fellowship, skin to the spitting of the world. Okay, well, what about if I have requirements in my ticketing system and I have some end users which are submitting issues, and I want to have the requirements documented with specific, measurable, actionable, reasonable, and time bound. Like there's many different business use cases that we can do with this. And this was editing one file. This is using a couple of commands to download into an API layer.
Colin, I have a question.
Yeah, I love
So I'm
questions.
still trying to understand exactly when you're changing quote unquote like the language. Is this all in this model that already exists? Like how is it figuring out the language itself? Is it based on like what information does it already have we're using to arrive to this? Was like I'm kind of aware what patch is, but like if you just said that to me, I wouldn't be able to just figure it out.
We've just identified a generation gap. Okay, Richard. So the models themselves are effectively highly compressed versions of the internet. So when you the models themselves are effectively highly compressed versions of the internet. So all the stuff like good and bad, right? All that horrible stuff we said to each other on Facebook, right? We are now training our AI overlords to act like that towards us. So I always repeat this: be nice to your models, right? Be nice to each other online. We're training them just like our children. So there's both the directly observed behavior that when the models are trained, where they suck in all that data. And right now, the GPT-4 models, as I understand, there's about 8 different models which are routed to on the back end with routers on the front end, from what I understand right now. But they're about trained on 50% of the knowledge on the internet. So there's both observed what it knows, but then there's also this concept called emergent behavior. There's some instances where models are trained specifically for a use case, and then you ask it for another use case, and it figures out. Like I forget which white paper, it was out on the Stanford teams where they trained it for some English languages, and I think 1 or 2 other languages. and they queried it for Farsi, and it came back intelligible. So because these models, when we're dealing with data in these language models, we're taking prior to this last week's release of multimodal, right? We're taking text data and changing it into like a direction between space and time. It's a map, right? So like Colin to Richard to Charles to cat on the wall, right? It is similar to Colin to Dow to cat on the wall. And so if I say, I want to, I'm addressing the people at the right side of this table, talking about this beautiful kitten leaping over some fruit. The models can understand because the relation of literally the maximal marginal relevance, the distance between that graph, those points in time, you're so close to each other. So weird stuff comes out of it. Yes, Charles.
But specifically with the language calculation piece, OpenAI has put a big emphasis on that as part of their sort of specific approach to this. There are other language models that speak different language, but they're investing a lot in the semantic layer that allows them to do that. And depending on the sophistication of a model, you can get a translation. But the more sophisticated the model, the more nuance and texture is sort of obtained, right? So there's a lot of specifics that OpenAI is investigating to allow for this in space, and more broadly, it's 93 languages or something crazy like that. So
It's insane. It's insane. And you don't have to maintain all that code. You just pass it off. I mean, it's like lazy sysadmin work. I love it. Okay. So let's go ahead and like extend this application. Hold on. We did this. We did this. Press save. We did this. Okay. Want to extend this application? Let's do it. Okay. So we're going to Control C. We're going to terminate this application running, and then we're going to add something. So LangChain app add CSV agent. Yes, we want to install it. We want to be able to edit it. So a CSV agent, if we go into the repo of wherever it was, sorry, it's all display things getting in the way. The CSV agent, look in our templates. One should be more organized. So prompting, power speak. Okay, so if we go into the CSV agent here, we can see the CSV agent itself actually pulls in the, it's buried in the code. Oh, it pulls in the data, the manuscript from the Titanic, right? So in this case, we'll go over here. We see that it installed pandas data frames, which is generally a way you pull in like tabular data into Python. You'll see pandas or PD a lot. If you see that, think of it like an Excel table, a file in Excel, right? Super easy, right? Okay, so we have some routes. We're gonna just make this a little bigger so it's pretty. We have code, so we're saying from our CSV agent, import the CSV agent chain, and then we're gonna expose it at CSV agent. We go into our server, enter, make it pretty, X. If you're using anything like Control X is like a cut and paste. Okay, so we got it all pretty here. Let's press save. Go back in our terminal. Now, if you're using command line, you can press up and it'll take that last command that you did. Press up again, and we got back to LangChain serve. Let's press enter, watch it loading. And because we restarted this application, just gonna have to press play on our hack together tunnel to get out. Click on it, give it our IP. Pirate speaks, oh, what do you know? We have a separate AI, we have another AI application running behind an API service layer. You could, if you wanted, in a really simple use case, put together a Streamlit app pull one from the other, like, I don't know, query data from the Titanic and have it come back to you to talk like a pirate, maybe an iceberg, right? Okay, so then let's go into CSV agent. Playground. And we can say, I don't know, how many women and children are on the Titanic? This isn't going off the internet, by the way. It's pulling it out of a CSV. You can put your own CSV inside of here. You can extend it. What cool way to show off to your boss. There are 372 women and children. Okay, cool. What was the average age of the women and children on the Titanic? Now, if we look into the code, 24 and a half years. Our packages, am I in the right window? No, not. Thank you. No, I was in the wrong window. So you see now I have packages. I have CSV agent. I have data, right? I have basically the index for my, there you go. And I have my CSV. So you can go into the, you can go down through the code, and you can you can see that we're pulling tabular data. We're pulling it into Pydantic or into Panda data frames, and then we're executing through the web interface. I'm going to show you one last thing that I think is really, really cool, and then I'm sorry.
Doesn't find the data not cleaned up. Is for example, I've done similar things and the issues that I have sometimes is I'll ask questions.
Yeah.
And the answer may not be in the data.
Yeah.
And
so one of the things that one of the first things that I did when I was building this due diligence tool chain, which was in a notebook, I just checked it in some repos, but it worked, you know, and it would take audio interviews and documentation that come from my manufacturing partners and then validate whether they weren't running a scam, they hit their quality goals and stuff like that. In my prompt templates, I very specifically said, if you don't know, say, I don't know. Oh. So here's the second thing, and I haven't implemented yet. And if anyone wants to implement this, I'm happy to see it work. The Ragas project, RAGAS. It's an open source project. And what it does is it takes 4 different dimensions and it basically observes the retrievals coming and gives you a statistical, gives you a KPI about its accuracy, whether it's hallucinating or not. So you have some numbers you can pull off into there. You can use that score as part of an evaluation of what you display. But then also you can use it for like you can pass that into an auditing tool. So you can start to audit your accuracy. This brings up a really interesting shift in perspective where we look at determinism in a project versus, where is the software being deterministic and working all the time or breaking. And with retrieval augment generation, there's this concept of it's close. How close is it? And so taking a lot of the concepts that we see from reliability engineering, right, where nothing is perfect, nothing stays up all the time, right? We have a probability score that something's accurate, and then we use tools from like Lean Six Sigma tools, right? We go ahead and create distributions. We want to know like how far away from mean is this response? Is this inside of my upper or lower control groups, right? There's some basic, easy mathematical tools been out since the 80s that we can start to apply with these things. And the Ragas project, which ties into LangChain, I think is really interesting. Another open source project and fits right into that. And I'm really excited to see them grow in use.
Parameter temperature 0 or something similar.
Like there is, well, that is the most common. That is the easiest, right? Which is temperatures, moving your temperature up or down, allowing for creativity, but it's not finite and you can't manage it as a metric. What's that? Yeah, absolutely. Hallucinating.
That's just a fundamental property of this kind of an a tool.
Yeah.
It isn't an information retrieval model. It's a text generation model, right? And so what it is built to do is to create text that looks like the kind of text you want. And it's much less capable of understanding data and facts. It's improving quite a lot in that regard, but getting it to a point where it is just a reliable fact generator and retriever is a challenge.
There's your papers and stuff about that. These models were created to please the user. So it will, in its mind, yeah, it's going to create an answer according to the question, whether or not that is accurate. So
even if you like really try hard to say like, if you don't know, just say you don't know.
Yeah.
It still really wants to give
you could try like different capitalizations. You could say please and stuff. It's all about activating the different, sort of latent emergent behavior. And you can just try the prompt, sort of like you're talking to a child. So please don't do this, or there was, I think,
what I found to be the most effective is to either directly use or effectively mimic the function calling API that OpenAI provides. And the idea there is like you prompt the model to give you input parameters to a Python. And then it'll supply those to the function, run the function, and give you the result. The reason that's useful is because that forces it to give you only and specifically a set of results that you're asking for and not, a big blob of free text. So you say, like, here's a function, and what this function wants is average age of a person on the Titanic. Supply it to this function. So it has a clear format and structure that it wants to.
Yeah, but what is the hallucinating parameter? That's so the only solution that I found so far is basically using two models and then comparing if the results match, then they're not hallucinating.
Or rather, you feed the input of one model to the other one, turn it into a classification problem and say, okay, is this output based on this context? Is it, is this a true statement or a false statement?
But there's no easier way.
LangChain makes it really easy to construct those pipelines.
Yeah.
Where,
That's like 700, 3,000 rows. What?
Oh, you're sending the same, you're doing the
How
same.
many data is? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the model doesn't know that you're talking to it. It's just responding, giving you output.
Oh, this kind of thing about suites.
Sorry, what?
That's when you use something like this. Or you can use local model examples.
CSV 3.8
Yeah.
So very short. Looks good. One of things also that's how many data in this CSV.
How much data? So how much data?
I was kind of wondering.
Yeah, I actually, that's the first thing that I asked is how much data you have.
Well, let's have one conversation. Oh, no, I just want to make sure. Yeah, no, look, it's a great conversation. And I just want to make sure we're in one conversation. Oh, no, sorry. Like, we're a group, right? Let's have the conversation. I think we're highlighting this shift in, like, as a business user, like, what do you mean I don't know if it's going to be completely correct? What do you mean I don't know? Right? Okay, well, test-driven development's been out for many, many, many years. It's made a huge difference in the rest of the world, and no one likes writing their tests, right? No one likes writing their tests. Who writes their tests first? Raise your hand. Exactly. Right? Who knows you should write our test first? Okay. And so as things are moving forward, we can't really guarantee we get accurate data. We can guarantee we get okay data. And we can start to measure and create the frameworks to establish the KPIs and manage that. And that's where it's to determinism versus like a reliability engineering SRE kind of view. And that's where, like when I was running Oracle's cloud infrastructure, right? I had an outage budget. sadly millions of outage minutes a year, right? Because there's no way you can keep 135 data centers around the world up all the time, right? You can't. There's with all that application stack, all that hardware stack, squirrels coming into crawling into generators and taking out data, all that, right? Same thing with this code, right? We have to, in my understanding right now, we have to expose the KPIs, expose the metrics, and learn as technologists to start to manage those metrics. And this is like, do it in proof of concept. We're not putting this in life safety right now. Well, I mean, maybe do it in space, but we'll see. I want to show, it's getting late. I want to show a thing called LangSmith. So I deployed another application while we're out here. So this is a solo performance prompting agent. It's really fun. What's the best way of finding a good taco in Austin? What it's doing is actually going back to DuckDuckGo, and I didn't preload this before, by the way, so we'll see. So it's actually going and using DuckDuckGo to search the internet, and it's doing this React, right? So I'm gonna do some reasoning based on my query, and then I'm gonna take action based on it. I'm gonna loop through it, right? So this is a great example of, it's a very open-ended question. It's going 57, 63 steps. What's going on with my application? If you remember in the bonus round, we'd exported some variables inside of our application, and the project name was, it's running right now, LC102. We have a runnable sequence here. We see the agent executor. Let's click on some things. We can see the entire thought process of our application. Now, to your point, to your question, like, how do I know if my agent just pulled back crap data and then went off the rails and gave me a recommendation that's going to get me in trouble? Well, you can start to export this. So you can bring things in. You can export all this data. You can pull out of like a callback handler into your local machine. You can pull it out into whatever log management you want. LangSmith is really neat because it gives a couple of things. One, it sees I have a pending runnable sequence. I got a call. My application is slow. What's going on? Well, Colin asked a really open-ended question, and it might still be going. It broke. No, it's still going, right? It might go forever, but I can go through in this case, and I can see a lot of really interesting things. I can go through and I can see what is the latency? Is my local LLM, is Mistral 7B running on CPU instead of GPUs? Did my deployment team put in the wrong infrastructure, right? I can go ahead and I can see that, I'm accessing DuckDuckGo search. I can pull the exact, I can look at the thought process. So what is the best way of finding a good taco in Austin? I can have, it's just defining its reasoning steps, right? Let's act as a food expert. Let's act as all this stuff. You can then use, the cool thing about this tool right here is you can now look inside of here and you can basically pull this back out in your prompt engineering. It's free right now. I use it. I'm still learning it. I'm not an expert on it, but I thought I'd share it. If you don't have access, they're letting everyone else in the beta right now. If anyone doesn't get access to it, I have a code that Harrison gave me. So on that note, it is 9/11. I want to make sure that everyone get their sleep and have a good time, and also have some time to connect with each other and have free conversation. I want to go ahead and thank you personally for joining us. I'm seeing a lot of repeat faces. I'm seeing a lot of new faces. Great conversations, and just thanks from the bottom of my heart for learning with me and for being a part of this group. I hope to see you in our next in-person one. I'm thinking about doing just like a nice lightweight mixer happy hour. Is anyone interested in something like that? Cool. I'll throw some on the schedule. East side myself, so maybe we'll do some fun on the east side. Cool. Again, you can find us on all over the internet. But log on the Discord server, say hi. And also if anyone knows any cool Web3 stuff, I'd love some help getting like the tickets and there's stuff that you can basically say that you can put participation and tie it into tokens and do a bunch of fun stuff. Yeah, inside of that stuff. But anyways, that's just me being a nerd. Thank you again. Thanks.